So, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Reluctant Leader. And I am joined today by the love doctor, Amit Sodha. And I am so excited about this conversation. Do you know what? I've been trying to have a conversation with Amit for so long, and I'm like, no, we've got to save it. We've got to save it for the Reluctant Leader series. So, I am finally excited to have this no holds barred conversation. Now, before we do get into our chat, Amit, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody that is listening and watching?
Of course, yeah. So my name is Amit Sodha. I'm a holistic love coach. My moniker is that I'm the love doctor. So I've been a coach for 32 years, 16 of which have been dedicated to dating and relationships. And one of the things that I'm well known for is my dating platform right now, Connect Asian. So we've got a Facebook group full of single people. We treat it like a pseudo dating platform, as well as a WhatsApp group. And alongside that, I run singles event. I did one in June recently that was 300 people. I've got one coming up this month. And the whole purpose being of going back to in almost in a sense the way we used to date back in the 80s and 90s, because the big challenge that people face is that swiping has kind of ruined dating. So it's teaching people what they need to know, because dating is something that's never taught to any of us, especially in Asian circles, but just generally, who actually ever teaches us dating relationships. So my mission is to put that out there, connect people for deep and authentic connections, and to make the dating process a lot easier.
I love that. And do you know what? I'm almost really gutted that I'm actually married, because I missed out on this dating thing. And I've been following you for ages, and I've been watching what you do, and it just looks like so much fun. And it does feel like I missed out on a whole load of stuff. But it is obvious that we are brown people, Amit. So we are brown, and brown people tend to be lawyers and different kinds of doctors, medical doctors and accountants and all these other things. So where did the love doctor come from, and where did this whole dating coach and being in the dating game come from?
Let's see if I can link some of these things up, because it's quite interesting how some of these things came about, right? So I'll
Okay.
start off with a brief history. When I was younger, sort of about 15, I sort of fell into very spiritual practices, and I even became a meditation teacher at the age of 15. So I kind of lost interest in school, didn't enjoy it at all. And when I came to do my GCSEs, I left school with like one GCSE. I did do a little bit of further education. Yeah. Big up the energy crowd. I did do a bit of further education. I even got to a point where I was working full time. I was going off to, I was in a bit of a weird situation because I was in a full time job. I just started a part time university course, which was, I was living in South London. I was going to university in, sorry, big pardon, let's rephrase that. I just moved to Northwest London. My university was in East London, and I was working in like, I don't even remember off the top of my head, but I was literally every day doing a full traversal around London, and it just got too much. So within 6 weeks, I had to pack in my degree. I needed my job. And so I ended up working in sort of like gravitating towards working in IT. Prior to that, as a kid, I got my first paper round when I was like 9 years old. I think it was like 9 years.
Wow,
I started
really?
working.
I
Yeah,
would tell my
yeah.
son, he's 9. He can get out there and work.
Yeah, tell him. It's crazy. Like when I think about it, right? But I've always ended up getting part-time jobs from a very young age, because we came from a poor family. It was one of those things that was drilled into us, that you need to work and earn money.
The work
So,
ethic, yeah.
yeah. So I started, and then I got fired for my first ever paper round, and then I was working in a clothes shop for a little while, and I got fired from there shortly after. But I just didn't enjoy school when I was at school. In fact, my last year of school, I was so disinterested, I barely went in. And all I would do, literally, I would pretend to go to school, but I'd spend all day on the tube, traveling around London, just wasting my time going to Hamleys, playing in the arcades, whatever. It didn't matter. I just was not interested in school and learning, which is kind of ironic, because now I am absolutely like a voracious learner, like crazy. Like I don't stop learning now. But my first foray into business was when I was becoming, through that period, when I was not going to school, I found a hobby, which is beautiful because it was magic. And through that, I sort of ventured
Like
into,
literally magic.
yeah, as in becoming a
A
magician.
magician. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was literally, I think for me, it was a couple of shows I saw on TV. And then, when you used to walk past Hamleys, you'd have all those people outside on the other
Yeah,
door
doing all the
doing
tricks.
magic. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that kind of got me into it. So I started to learn. So my first side business, my first side hustle was being a professional magician. So along the way, I ended up doing a magic show in front of about 500 people. And one funny story from that experience, I was doing one trick, which was a fire trick, and I was starting off, and I did actually burn my hand. But of course, you can't do it. You can't react on stage and everything. My hand was like proper singed, but I had to continue. The show had to go on, and so that was my first foray into business. There, I was, by the way, all this time still coaching, still teaching people. That started at a very young age, and it carried on. I was at the
Wow.
meditation center. I was the children's teacher, and I started teaching adults. And so all this is going along in parallel. I was working, doing that, learning, and then I also got into doing a lot of voluntary work in terms of doing. Started to join this organization that was called like a business education partnership, and I was going into schools, giving talks, coaching kids, mentoring kids, doing like business workshops, CV workshops, all sorts of things for many, many years. I remember one year I was working, and 3 days out of 25 I used for personal vacation. The other 22 days I was doing voluntary work. Then came my next foray, which was, obviously this is slightly a muddled story, but not exact linear timeline. Then I got into a bit of stand-up comedy. I was doing a few other things. All this while, when I was doing coaching outside of the spiritual university, it was all free work. It was all work that I wasn't charging for, all pro bono, but it was a good, really good learning experience. It was only in probably about 2008 I got into a position where I thought, okay, I need to start turning this into a bit of a business. At the same time, I got into stand-up comedy, and I was also at that point in my life where I was terrible at dating and I wanted to learn. So that's when I started to learn about dating and relationships and got good at it and pivoted into coaching people about dating and relationships. So that has been that side of things for the last 16 years.
Wow.
And then it was only in 2018 is when I think I finished my last ever IT job and decided to pursue this full time. And I've been doing it ever since. And, for anyone who knows, who runs a business, knows it's a crazy. Yeah, it's a roller coaster and a half.
A bit like the dating industry, a bit like the dating journey.
It is. And do you know what's really funny? I think, just to end on this note, is that there's probably very little difference between what you do in marketing and what I teach people in dating.
Yeah,
Because
probably.
everything I learn about dating, I apply to marketing. It truly is the same thing. It's, it's the element of the numbers game, how you present yourself. Even if you were to go to the level of, say, a CV, how you present yourself. Do you go into a job interview going, hi, I'm probably not really, I only work in IT. I don't. Now, are you ever going to do that or go to a pitch doing that? No, of course you would. Why would you do that on a date? And so, I relate a lot of these things back to people in terms of, I say to people, look, I'm not dating at the moment, I'm married. However, the closest analogy I've got is, say, for example, on networking events or pitching myself. If I was doing a workshop in front of people right now, a dating workshop, and I ended up going on stage, really berating myself, putting myself down from the get-go. Oh, I only work in IT. This is all I do. How are people going to respond to that? Or if I go in front of an audience with my chest out, shoulders back, going, I'm the best damn coach you're ever going to get. So it's up to you. You choose me if you want me. I'm there. If not, I wish you all the best. But I've been doing this for a long time. I've learned. I've read hundreds of books. I've listened to 100 audiobooks since 2020. Like I said, I'm just such a voracious learner now. Anything I learn, I put into practice. So if you want that expertise, it's there. If not, I truly wish you all the best. But it's the way you pitch yourself. It's the way you put yourself forward. Same applies in dating.
I love that. And do you know the funny thing is, and this just reminded me of it, I use dating as an analogy in marketing. And I just remembered that now. I was like, I always use, the first date you meet someone, the first date, the second date, getting married, all of that kind of stuff. So I use that analogy as well, which is really incredible. So you've actually had a business head from a very, very young age.
Yeah, and it came. Do you know what? It's all thanks to my parents, really, because when they moved to Wales and when I was born, we had a laundrette. So we didn't have a shop, but we had a laundrette on a corner.
Was it on the corner?
It was on
the corner.
And then when we moved to London when I was 12, we got an off license. It didn't last long. It was, we were just in it was bad timing more than anything. We got the shop when two things happened. The recession happened in 1990 and Sunday
Mm.
trading occurred. And it was the perfect storm. So if you've got a shop and you go through those two things, we were very quickly in negative equity in our home and business. And then of course, Sunday tradings come in and increasing opening hours for the bigger stores. Little stores really plummeted at that point, which is obviously ironic to what's happening right now, because
Wow.
obviously
Yeah.
little stores are more really doing quite well, and supermarkets and the big supermarkets are suffering, right? So it was quite ironic. So that business savvy actually came from my parents, because we were poor and they worked hard, and that kind of instilled something in me.
Mm. And do you know what? Even failure is such a
Mhm.
big lesson. You learn so much during times of failure.
Yeah.
And do you know what? It is quite funny because my dad had a business in the 90s as well. And his experience stopped me wanting to go into business. But you're right, because nowadays the key is support small. Everyone encourages you to support small.
Yeah.
But back then it wasn't as easy. So it was quite a hard journey.
It was, yeah. I really felt for my dad.
Mm.
It was one of those things. He was just doing it for his family, and we were in an area which wasn't great. It was, there's a lot of crime there. It was quite difficult challenge. I had guns put to my face. My dad did as well. We all went through this, and so it's a very, it's a very challenging business to be in. You, of course, it's very heavily associated with the stereotype, but it was difficult. It was challenging, and then to have to make that decision to close it down, it's like, what do you do then? So it's really, really challenging. But I guess in one sense, that's what also makes me failure averse, for want of a better phrase,
Mm.
because I see, and I you've seen it firsthand. And then of course, people like us, right? We're lucky, we've grown up seeing the rise of entrepreneurship and solopreneurship, and so we've got good support structures around us, good people to learn from, seeing the steps and then developing and growing. I mean, like, if we were on a scale right now of 1 to 10 of business success, I still consider myself on the first rung of the ladder, number one. Still so much to learn, still doing so much.
Still so far to go, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah, but I love it. I love the fact that I'm at the bottom, because then you get to work up to something.
Yeah, the only way is up. The only way is
Exactly.
up from there. Amazing. So you have mentioned that you were terrible at dating.
I was.
So
I was good. I was a good coach. I was good with people. I was a little bit socially awkward, and I wasn't typically funny, and that's what made me also get into doing like stand up comedy and stuff as well, because the two very much go in hand. However, there was a part of me as well, so I wanted to become a better public speaker on the coaching
okay.
side. So I thought, and I went to a Toastmasters workshop for first couple of
Mm.
sessions, but I just found it a bit slow and boring. To No offense to any Toastmasters out there, it just wasn't for me. And I'm always this. Have you ever heard that quote, the Bill Gates quote? It goes, if I've got something really difficult to do, I always give it to the lazy person, because they'll always find the shortcut way to do it.
Oh, okay. I never heard that, but that's a
Yeah.
very good thing.
Yeah, that's me. I'm the lazy person who finds the
Mm.
shortcut to get something done. So long as it's done, that's all I care about. I don't care about how it's done. I just care about, can I get it
It's
done?
fun. Yeah.
And yeah, and so that's really pretty much me. So got in that powerful chain of thought. I forgot what the original question was now.
Terrible dating.
That's it, right? Thank you. Yeah. So So for me, yeah, that was it. The public speaking bit I was talking about. So for me, the shortcut was, let me try stand-up comedy, because I think that that's a really sort of accelerator version of public speaking. Like, let's face it, who are the master public speakers? It's comedians, right? So I
Mm.
was learning that at the same time I was learning about dating, about the psychology of dating, watching and learning through books, videos, any video programs. Obviously, not back then, not as readily accessible. You had to download bootlegs and stuff. And I was just learning from all these masters, all these people who are very good at it, realizing that I was on completely the inverse track, being the ultra nice guy, wondering why that's freaking a women away, thinking I needed to be even nicer, and realizing they freaks them away even more, rather than actually employing a bit of fun, playfulness, banter, charm, charisma. The guy that I was watching at the time, he defined it as cocky comedy. That was his term, and I rephrased that later on to cheeky charm, and that's what it it was. It was about realizing you don't have to be a nice guy. You can be nice, but you don't have to exude niceness to feel attraction. In fact, that's actually very repulsive in many ways.
Mm.
What you want to do is almost a bit of a reverse psychology. There's a technique to it. There's a playfulness to it. Quick example: 2 days before we got married, my wife hates this story, by the way. I'm going to tell it.
Don't tell her you're doing this recording. Don't worry. You won't know.
So 2 days before we got married, it's always a fun story for me to tell. Anyway, we were I was at Asian Media Awards shortlist announcement for whoever's going to win the awards, and I was there. And during the networking at the end, I was just doing my thing, just chatting with people. There was a beautiful young lady there by the name of Nisha. She's on my Instagram as well. She's an actress, she's a model, she does all this kind of stuff. She was wearing a really gorgeous red dress. She was chatting with a few other girls. And me being who I am, thinking, I'm going to get married in 2 days, but I don't want to lose this skill because I want to be able to teach it to other people. So I thought, okay, what's a good way to approach this right now? So I kind of went up to her, and in the middle of her speaking to her two friends or whoever they were, I kind of just went up to her and I said, I'm so sorry for interrupting you. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I just want to congratulate the second best dressed person here, because you almost look as good as I do. So I just wanted to say congratulations for second place.
You didn't.
I did, but they all cracked up. And it's what I would call as an indirect compliment, right? So I'm kind of saying to her, she looks really lovely, how she's dressed, but I'm also not going like, oh my God, you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Yeah, like, oh my God, like I think I make a mistake in 2 days. I must, you must, like that's creepy, that's awkward. But my approach was very soft, inverse. Yes, I was also complimenting her, but also taking the mickey ever so slightly. And that's what I'd say to guys is the sweet spot. It is the way to get a woman's attention. It is the way to get her interest, pique her interest. It's not be overly creepily, complimentary, but playfully cheeky, and makes her more intrigued by you. So that was what it was, and it was that kind of thing. So I started to learn.
You mastered the art of being a better dater
and flirter.
And flirter, yes. And you even made the comment earlier to me. So before we went live, we were talking about, shouldn't we say it? We were talking about my husband's legs. And Amit corrected me and said he's got the second best legs.
Yes, he has. He's these gorgeous, machines right here are just, phenomenal.
So nothing to do with business, but just because I'm being bloody nosy right now. So how did you meet your wife? Did you use your own dating skills and these techniques that you just mentioned to win your wife over?
Yeah, of course. It's a given.
Biggest success story, right?
Yeah, no, so we did meet on a dating app actually, and we so I had these golden rules I always followed, that to get someone's number within 15 minutes, to get them on a date within a couple of days, week maximum. Otherwise I would just move on, because I think to myself, look, time in life is so short. I just want to get out there, meet people. If they're busy, if they're not responding, none of my business. I'm just going to move on. So we ended up, literally, she gave me her number within 5 minutes. She was my personal best. She was my record. I got her number and we met up. Whenever I look back at the days, I think it was actually the next day, not 2 days after, if I look at it correctly. So we met up literally the next day, went out on a date, just gotten really well. I remember had another date the day afterwards as well. And that girl and I was in a really chilled out mood. I just got back from a road trip in the States with some friends. I was in a very kind of chilled out mood. And she got really upset about the fact that I had a date before, and that I was with, and that I was mentioned that I had a date. And she said, you kept on going about that woman. And I was like, I didn't mention anything. I said it once. I said I was on a date the day before, right? Anyway, that one didn't work out. But, my wife and I, we got really well. And we ended up having 3 dates in the first week, 12 dates in the first month. And after a month, we were just like,
smooth, Amit, smooth.
Yeah. I'm telling you, I nailed it there by that point.
This stuff works, right?
And it was really cool. What's really cool though is if you were to ask my wife, like, what things she remembers, she would always mention the little things. There was, I think it was maybe the fourth time we met, she had to go get some physio or something, like some treatment not far from where I lived. She didn't know where it was, and she was really low on petrol. And she said to me, do you know what? I'm somewhere and I don't know where I am, but I'm running out of petrol. I'm a bit worried. So I actually had to find her, and I found her. I sort of had an idea.
Shining armor.
Yeah, found her, met her, and like, drove, managed to find a petrol station with her, and that's it. And then she got home safely. And then the other thing she always remembers is the second time we met, she was actually had a meeting with a recruiter in London, literally in the building next door to where I worked. And I remember her telling me she hadn't had any lunch, so I literally went to prep, bought her a, sandwich, apple, drink, whatever. I got her a little bag and gave it to her and said, "Look, I know you're hungry and whatever. Here's your thing." So
Cute.
she'll always remember those little things.
Brownie
Whereas
points.
for
And they
me,
are the little things are the big things, aren't they?
they are, yeah, exactly, yeah. So, but for me, I'll always think of it as just my one wonderful
Charm.
charm that did it.
So were you a dating coach when you met your wife?
Yeah, she knew, and
Oh.
she'd done her due diligence in terms of how to do dating. So she'd read a book called The Rules, which after watching Friends about 1,000 times every episode, I only noticed there was a reference to the rules in one of the episodes. And it's the episode where Chandler's trying to detract Monica from marriage, and he's in the pizza place and he's like, do you want your copy of the rules, man trap, or something? And I never really noticed that reference
Oh,
before, but it was like
yeah.
you're talking about it. So so she'd read that book, and that really completely shifted her mindset about dating. And so when we were dating, she knew how to handle me, and obviously I knew what I was doing anyway. So it kind of like, it really just balanced each other out. There was no messing around. It was just very straightforward, very okay, are we doing this? Yes, let's do it then. Cool, let's go. And that's kind of how it all transpired.
Amazing. I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, it was lovely little love story there.
Yeah, how cute. So, okay, I've got my stuff out of the system now. I just wanted to know some of this stuff. I've got that out of my system. Back onto business. So, did you, even though you've been doing what you've been doing from a really, really early age, did you always just think that this is my life now, that I am a business owner? And did you even identify as an entrepreneur and a business owner?
I did ish, and I guess, I don't know about you, right? I'm sure most entrepreneurs and solopreneurs now, like us, can probably relate. I never really fitted in. I was in a job where I
Mm.
had a really good boss from about 2003 to 2010. So it was a company called TNS. I think everyone would probably know that company by its other name now, which is with Kantar. I believe it's the main banner now, right? But anyway, I was working there. I was working in IT. I was doing really well. I was kind of one of the network administrators. I was, well liked, well respected, and I really enjoyed that job as well. But then just got made redundant. And then I went into a new job back in 2000, after a couple of years of being just doing radio and doing a few other bits, doing my own bits. 2012, I thought I could have made a business by then, a profitable business. Obviously didn't. I needed a job. I was running out of money. I was very poor at that point, car falling apart, all that kind of stuff. We've all been there. And then I went into another job, and it felt like, to me, God, the corporate world has just changed so much. I mean, prior to
Mm.
that, I'd been in investment banks, I've been in all sorts of places, but it just felt like it was totally different. And in this company that I was in between 2012 2016, I was always the outlier. I was always the one. How I made it past probation, I don't know. It's a really good company to start up. Everyone knows it as well, because it's the ticketing company called AXS. So
Okay.
in the beginning, we were the London startup arm, and it was under a name called Outbox. So Outbox is the white label software they use for Access. So because it's startup, it's a very tough job. Like in the beginning, there were days we were there from 7 in the morning till 2 o'clock at night, and then back in again at 7 o'clock in the morning. And then we went to LA for 10 days to go and see the LA office and learn from them and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, I love reminiscing about that stuff. But ultimately, I just didn't fit in. I know there was a time when my boss desperately wanted to just get rid of me, and he almost tricked me into leaving and signing a temporary contract. And I was like, no, not going to do it. Not going to do it under your terms. I'm leaving when it's my time. And then I left in sort of May 2016, and I got a contract at a local council. And at the same time, I'd also developed an app. So the app was called Zen Alarm, and it was an alarm on the iPhone that basically kind of came up with a quote when you set the alarm, and came up with a quote on the screen and stuff. And there was a few things coming out just like that. So The Rock did one. I can't remember what it was called, but his one came out just before my one launched. And just on the really nice note about the app, although it didn't really go anywhere, didn't do particularly well, I remember when I was selecting the company to make the app, the price they charged me or quoted me was like back then it was a company in India. They quoted me like £1,537, and it just so happens I had £1,537 in my savings account. That's all I had, right? And
Wow, look at that.
I know, and I was like, it's a tough decision, right? You look at those numbers and you're like, no, that can't be right. And that's exactly what they wanted, right? And I was like, okay, do I do this? Do I just literally spend my life savings at that moment in time on this app, or not? And I went for it, and like I said, it didn't pan out to anything, but I'm glad I did it because I learned so much, just doing that process. And so yeah, I was one of these people, to circle back to your point. Didn't fit in. I didn't always know I was going to end up doing this, because my biggest challenge when I was younger is I got myself into a huge amount of debt, which made me feel trapped in the working world, and I needed to keep paying off that debt. Hence why I had to keep getting jobs. And so, although it's probably something I wanted, I couldn't do because I needed to obviously fulfill my responsibilities. And that was always the tricky thing to balance. But we all go through those struggles, right? Balancing, especially the biggest part of business is, how do you balance the money, your needs, your actual paying the bills, versus doing something that you love and you want to create.
100%. And do you know what? It is those things that make you who you are today, right? It's going through all of those experiences, going through those motions, and experiencing what you've experienced that makes you the lived experience that is now the Love Doctor.
Exactly. And it was, at that time it was great as well. So I got into a contract, and obviously when you're contracting, you had loads of money, and it was great.
Loaded, right?
Yeah, it was a beautiful time. It helped me pay for our wedding, and pay my share of the wedding and all that kind of stuff, and pay off all my debts as well. So I managed to do that, within 18 months, pay off these debts that have been on my shoulders for years, and also pay for a beautiful, first class honeymoon for us both as well. So it all came. It was very timely. The one thing I'll say is that, whatever anyone's beliefs are, your serendipities, your belief about fate, God, the universe, whatever, I've never ever, although I've struggled and there's been moments where I've been literally penniless, I've never had to go without. Somehow, some way, life has always provided.
Yeah, your needs are always met.
Yeah, honestly.
And a designer handbag isn't a need, but your needs will always be met. And I've always said that as well. I've always said that to business owners, that the universe has your back, and your needs will always be met, even if you don't realize it. They actually are being completely met. So Amit, there is some stigma with business owners around, do they get a job? Do they go full-time in their business? If their business isn't making money, do they go and get a job? All of this kind of stuff. And you've kind of played tennis with that relationship for a very, very long time. And I think you've probably had one of the healthiest attitudes towards actually just getting contract. And I've done it myself as well. When I first started out in business, I needed to invest in my business, and I didn't have money to invest. So I had to take contracts with companies so that they could actually finance my business. Could you share anything with people around, if their business isn't making money, doesn't mean it's the end?
Yeah, it is hard. It's very easy to say, and it's very hard to enact. I wouldn't be where I am today were it not for my wife, and the fact that she's got a really good job for those times when I'm not doing so well in my business. And so, to my wife, I say, thank you, because I would find it very difficult if it wasn't for her doing this. She's absolutely incredible, right? She's been so understanding and supportive, and she's just always there, never complained or anything like that. And so, since we've been married, which was 2017, I've been in a very fortunate position that has enabled me to kind of, when I say not stress too much, I mean, don't get me wrong, I stress, because I'm one of these people. I'm very, very hard on myself. There's no one in the world who is harder on me than me. And when I'm not succeeding, I really do, chastise myself, for want of a better phrase. So I'm lucky, I'm in a very fortunate position. But yeah, I think it's always difficult. You've got to you've got to find some way to, I'm sure even the best entrepreneurs would agree, Gary Vee, any of the other bigger ones, Grant Cardone, whatever. You've got to have some kind of income stream and some way of earning something. Otherwise, without even a little bit, you are going to struggle. So you've got to think about what's you I know there's an idea, there's an element of burn the boats, right? Tony Robbins talks about that. Burn your boats, don't, just don't look back. And that leverage will probably get you going. And then, of course, balancing that out with reality,
Mm.
paying the bills, looking after your family, buying food for the, food for the table. If you've got kids, I mean, I can't imagine, these business owners who've got kids as well to consider. I find that,
And
yeah.
smiggle, back to school smiggle. My God.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, I think God, I really admire you guys who've got that on top of everything else to consider. Like that's incredible. But yeah, I think it's worth having something there that you can fall back on should the need arise. And it's more just about giving yourself a tiny bit of peace of mind so the
Yeah.
stress is alleviated. So whilst I like the idea of burn your boats, I think it's great if you can do that. And you've got, if I think it's great you can do that if you've got nothing, no dependencies, no dependents, no kids, no wife, or no partner, no spouse who's relying on you. I think you can do that. But I think if you've got people relying on you, then your best bet is have a fallback that enables you to just earn some income, whether it is contracting, whether it's, whatever it might be. I've always said to everyone, right? I said this years ago on my blog, years and years ago, that if I, truly had nothing right now, first thing I do is, this is obviously very archaic, but probably get a paper out. Why? It maybe just gets me up in the morning, gets me active, start my day by doing a bit of exercise and doing a bit of work and getting paid for it. I mean, I know it would be very little money, but I'd still do it. Or
It's
I guess,
still something, isn't it? It still brings something
or,
in.
yeah, or today's option, be like one of those food delivery people, right? On a bike, just go and deliver food,
Mm.
or Uber cyclists,
Uber
whatever.
driving, yeah,
Yeah,
any of those.
anything like that, just to earn a little bit. I'm fortunate enough that at least I've got, I've got multiple arms of my business that bring in money. So like whether it's the coaching, the singles events, the matchmaking, all that kind of stuff. So because there's multiple streams, it's a little bit easier now. I don't have to have a fallback so much. But again, that's taken a long time. So yeah, my opinion is if you've got no one depending on you, hell yeah, burn those boats. But if you do, have a plan B there.
Yeah, have a plan B. That is a side step that you can go, fall back on to help meet your needs. Because I find one of the things is you get so stressed about money, you lose sight of your passion and you
Yeah.
lose sight of why you're actually doing what you're doing. So if you can alleviate that stress of the money, you can then reignite your passion for your business, which again is what's going to make you money anyway.
Yeah. I mean, just recently, right? I was doing the social media for Sunrise Radio. I was doing from November to May. The only reason I really stopped was more because this year has been so challenging in terms of like
Mm.
having family stuff going on.
Yes.
Otherwise, I probably would have kept up doing it. And we pretty much almost didn't have a social media presence, on Sunrise, very little, and a lot of the time it was just marketing material, or there was very little actual, anything that offered any of the three E's, entertaining, educating, or empowering. It didn't have any of those, and so I was doing all of that for 6 months as well. And it was great because it was just bringing in, while I was still recovering from everything that was going on, it was bringing a little bit of extra income as well. So, I wouldn't go back to IT now. Definitely, I've lost all those skills now, but I've got skills in social media and all these other kinds of things that I could consult in if people want it, if I needed some extra money. So I've got so many different avenues of potentially exploring where I could just earn some extra money if I needed it.
It's opportunities, right? There's
Yeah.
opportunities there, and you're open to all of these opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an MC. I've done people's weddings. I could do social media. I love, this is what I mean, that I love learning, and I love that all of these
Mm.
skills can bring in their own, even any one of those skills can be a full-time source of income if I wanted it to. But my thing is obviously I love coaching and I love the single stuff, and I'll keep doing it for as long as I love it.
Amazing. I love that. And how has your family been? with you being a love doctor. So, obviously your wife is fully supportive. How about your parents and the wider family? Because I find, especially with, I work with a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs. So, people that are kind of healers, they're therapists. And one of the things that they have is there's a lot of judgment, they have self judgment where they can't be seen talking about certain things or in case their uncle sees something or whatever. And you must get that a lot being in the profession you're in. And how do you deal with it?
That's a really good question. I love that because there is elements of my work that I'd love to talk about more on social media. And the obvious one being sex, right? Obviously,
Mm,
sex and intimacy. It's one
yeah.
of those areas I'd love to cover more. I don't for a number of reasons, and one of which is partly that. Um, and there's a couple of other reasons as well. So I get it. Luckily for me, right? So you asked about parents. So when I was, what I term as almost like a high school dropout. Now, my parents were a little bit like, oh God, we knew it. There's always one, isn't there? There's always one.
He's just going to go into drugs now. He's going to go into drugs. He's going to do something
Yeah,
else.
I think, do you know what? Despite what happened, I think my mum and dad weren't too worried. They didn't, obviously, they weren't happy. They weren't thrilled at the fact that I got left school with like 1C, but they kind of knew that I was quite capable. And so they never really sort of had a major go at me or anything. All my siblings, I'm the youngest, and all my siblings had done pretty well. They'd all at least been to university, got a degree or something like that. And I was the last one who didn't. And so, but they kind of saw me that I was working, I was getting jobs and I was doing things. And they were like, okay, fair enough. If that's your thing, go for it. Part of what made me lose interest was the spiritual stuff. I just lost interest in, learning math off a board. It just didn't interest me at all. But yeah, so luckily, and again, probably in the beginning there was a bit of judgment. I've got a cousin who's a similar age to me, same age as me. When he, this GCSEs, he left school with like 10 A's and a B or something, and obviously we were
One of
often,
those.
yeah, we were obviously compared at that time. But now, my family, in terms of I had a cousins do the other day, and it's really nice. They were just very intrigued by what I do because it's very different from the status quo. Being a love doctor, being a radio presenter, being someone who's on stage, meet celebrities, all that kind of stuff. It's more intriguing to them than anything. Even my aunties and uncles, whereas there may have been a lot of judgment in the past, they're all quite more intrigued by what I do now and love it. They'll ask me questions about it. They'll want to know more and what's going on. And I met this person. Do you know this person? And they get, like I said, they get more intrigued by it now than anything else. So I wouldn't say necessarily in the beginning they were supportive. I don't think there was a lot of that. It was just my desire to just go do what I wanted. I was just too much of a free soul. When people told me what to do, I'd go do completely the opposite.
Oh, do you know what? I do love that for you because ultimately then you've been able to live out the life that you want to lead. And is there anything, looking back at what you've been through, is there anything, if there's anybody out there that might be not living their true authenticity right now, the life that they want to lead, is there anything you would advise them?
That's a really good question. I think, you know what? Dip your toe in, because even if you think you might like something, when people have actually dipped into it, they realize actually, no, it's not for me. So
Yeah.
dip your toe in, because then at least first, and don't go all in until because then you can make that choice, that conscious decision, right? Actually, no, this is a must for me. This really is, because everything I've done has evolved over time, hasn't it? It doesn't look exactly like how I envisaged it 10, 15, 20 years ago. It looks very different. And it's changed, it's molded. And as I say to people, that as you grow older, the analogy I have, the dating analogy I have of this as well. Have you ever seen those people, you might have seen it on social media, where they go through a breakup and they always say, right, that's it. They're 25 years old. I'm going to be single for the rest of my life. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're saying that because you're annoyed and you're hurt and you're feeling it, right? But what's the point in making that declaration? It just doesn't make sense. You may change your mind 5 years down the line. You may change your mind 10 years down the line. You've got to really stop making all these hard and fast rules about yourself that this is exactly what I must be in this guise, in this format. That industry may not exist in 5-10 years. It may be something completely different. So just be open to it. Yeah, sure, of course, go for it, but be open to the fact that it's going to evolve, it's going to change. You may decide actually there's an aspect to this, whatever it is you want to do, that you don't like, and you may want to shift it, reinvent it. I would say, and I claim, not egoistically, I claim a lot of credit for completely revamping the dating industry from 2008 onwards, because I started doing events that were very different to what anyone did then. Then it was, I mean, don't get me wrong, whoever invented speed dating, they also completely reinvented dating. Brilliant concept, right? Of course, that's been around for good at least 30 years now, 25 plus years, I'd say. And whoever did that, brilliant, amazing, that's a really cool concept. And the same way, I brought in activity dating. I brought in a whole bunch of different stuff. Like if I go and look up most of these other singles events that are out there, I look at their spiel on Eventbrite and exactly what they're doing. It is a version of what I've been doing and building up to over the years. Whether it's adding in various kinds of icebreakers, activities, all that kind of stuff, or the way it's marketed, they've all got it from me. Whether they say it or not,
Admit it or not.
yeah, whether they say it or not, they all have in some way, shape, or form evolved from some of the stuff that I've done. And so, and like I said, it didn't start off that I was going to be 100% focusing on dating events, but actually I quite like it now. That changed, a few years ago. I thought, what, let's do this actually. Let's take this area and go with it, run with it. I thought purely it was going to be coaching and books for me. And then the dating events side came in, and actually it's quite enjoyable. It's tough. It's hard work, really hard work.
So it's kind of like going with the flow, right? Going with
yeah,
wherever your journey takes you and exploring it.
yeah. So look, the main thing is, to your question, yes, hell yes, but be open to it evolving and adapting and changing. It's not going to be exactly how you envisage it right now, and it will change and it will evolve. It will become what you don't expect it to become, and be open to that change.
Yeah. And do you know what? You're so right, because my business is so different now to what it was in 2018 when I first started. It's completely different, but it's magical. That's part of the magical journey of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. And
So
you look at, like, just quickly, right, the analogy of, if you look at what social media has become since what it was 5 years ago,
yeah.
4 years ago, right? Short form
Facebook
video.
started off as a connection for a university, didn't it?
Yeah.
And now it's just gone completely global.
Yeah, I love that movie as well. The Facebook movie is a great movie. And then, but look at short form video when TikTok came in at lockdown, right? Look at what short form video is now. And even then, short form video is not necessarily the crux of it. It's long form video and long form podcasts, and that's where it's at. So it's constantly evolving. It's constantly changing. It's constantly adapting. Yeah, you got to be ready to do that. Whatever you think you want to do, you got to be ready to adapt with whatever changes are coming your way.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that insight as well. So we are going to be coming up to the end of our conversation. Believe it or not, it's been absolutely amazing. And I think I could talk to you forever, but there's a couple of questions
Well, I
I
thought we
want
just getting started.
No, right? We have to do a part 2 one day. But a couple of questions that I want to ask, all around dating as well. So we'll leave it on a kind of lighter note. So one of my worst dating stories, I always remember this, was my God, it's honestly, when I thought of you and I'm having this conversation, this guy just came into my, I can't actually remember his name, but we were in a restaurant in Ealing, and we were just meant to meet for a coffee, but this guy orders full-on meal. And imagine I'm just sitting there with a drink and he's eating, and I've had to sit there and watch him eat his starters, eat his mains, and eat his dessert as well. And I'm just sat there with one drink, and I'm like, oh my God, how do I get out of here? And when it comes to pay the bill, I've only had a tea.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm not paying. I'm literally not paying for this guy to eat. So what does this guy say? He goes, oh, I left my wallet in the car. And he leaves the restaurant. And I'm like, has this just happened to me? Have I just let this guy leave me in the restaurant? And all the waiters came up to me and they're like, madam, are you okay? Is everything okay? Where's your date just gone? And I'm like, I have no idea. I'm texting my mates going, guys, what's going on? Has this guy just left me to pay the bill? But luckily he did walk back in, drenched because it was raining, to pay the bill. Never saw him again, but he paid the bill. But that was one of my worst dates. Can you please share the worst dating story, that is the worst dating experience that you've had, whether it's your own or anyone else that you've worked with?
Oh, there's been so many. Oh, on the spot.
Oh my God. Do you reckon you should start like a awards, like a Hall of Fame for
Oh yeah,
people?
like what are those awards? The ignoble awards, right? You know, where people
Yeah.
we'd have to do. That's a great idea. I love this. I love this. Oh, there's been so many stories I've heard of stuff like this, like that. Like for me, that's close to the top though. That's
Is
but there
that
have been
really? That
occasions
is
like
bad,
that.
isn't it? It is really
Yeah,
bad.
there's been loads like that. I
And the
remember a
worst
friend of
thing
mine
is he
telling.
was wearing all black and I thought he was the waiter.
I think really like a funeral director. Love it. One of my friends was telling me though once he was on a date and it was going really well. It was fun and everything. And then you know you kind of just you're having a great time. You're leaning over. There's a candle on the table and he's kind of leaning over and his shirt caught fire. Luckily, nothing happened. It wasn't like no injuries, nothing. But it was just, yeah. At the time, it was just
Oh my
they were
God.
they ended up both laughing about it. But it was like I said, I've heard so we joke about these ones. I've heard some really truly horrendous ones though, really horrendous ones. And I've had guys who've been in situations where the first thing they get asked by a woman is how much they earn, what do they do, kind of thing. And then I've had women several times obviously proposed to in the first 10 seconds of speaking or meeting. And there's been so many.
Yeah, I was
My
asked once
immediate
how much stuff
recall.
I have.
Yeah, what's going to
I was
happen
like,
is my immediate recall is so bad. What's going to happen as soon as we hang up this call, I'm going to remember a really cool story. So I'll say if
we'll
I
add it
get
into the comments.
yeah, we'll do that.
You can add it into the comments if you're like, no, actually, this was the worst story.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love these, hearing these. And for people like us, you probably get it more. I don't. I'm so far removed from the dating scene, married, 2 kids. So obviously anything that I get, I'll take it as keeping connected. And then what about success stories? What's been like your biggest success story when it comes to the dating world and the work that you do with people?
Well, hold that thought for a second. I'm just going to get something, a little prop. We're going to use this for the end, by the way.
Oh,
But we've had obviously through Connectation and everything that I do, we've had loads. So the first couple that ever got married through Connectation, I've had couples that got married before that as well. But through Connectation was a lovely couple called Parish and Ushma. They've just had their second kid recently. And I love this story because it was one of those stories that I kind of use a lot and tell people about, because after the first date, she didn't actually like him. And she wasn't, planning to see him again. But he did exactly what I teach guys to do. He'd already planned the second date. He'd already told her when it was going to be, what they were going to be doing. And she almost felt a little bit guilty. And she was like, I feel bad saying no. He's already done everything. So she went on the second date. And the second date was something very simple, bowling. And he just did something very simple. He just said, look, I'll tell you what. We'll have competition. If I win, you have to kiss me on the cheek. And if you win, I have to kiss you on the cheek, right? It was just very simple, very playful, nothing creepy. And she was like, all right, cool. And I can't remember which way it went. I think she won and he had to kiss her. But it was one of those things that just flipped a switch in her. She was like, actually, you know what? This guy's really cool. I really like him. And, lo and behold, they're married now. And it just goes to show that because most people are rejecting on a first impression, a first glance of a picture, profile, whatever. Here's an example of someone who just went on a second date. This person wasn't rude. She's just indifferent to him, didn't feel there was a connection. But she went on a date and lo and behold, they're married now with their second kid. And she's in marketing as well, actually. And
I was going to say, this sounds very familiar to my story with my husband. Now, don't tell him, but the first time I met him, I was like, I'm never seeing this guy ever again. Do not tell him. And the funny thing is, we're married now with 2 kids. And it was the second date as well. That was the thing that he kept being persistent. I bet he came to you, but he kept being persistent. I'll share his name after. He kept coming to me, made me book it. He locked in a second date, went to the second date, and the rest is history. So yes, I bet he came to you too.
But it's something I keep telling people. Look, that's yet another. These are examples I hear time and time again of stories of what I describe as they weren't my type, and the being went on the second date and look what happens as a result. But everyone's too judgmental at that first glance, that first thing, a first conversation. And like I said, so long as they're not rude, they're not nasty in any way, than just normal people. But if your sentence is I'm not feeling a spark of connection, that is the time you need to have that second date, second conversation. You must, because everything can change after that second conversation or date or whatever.
100%. And I'm living proof of that as well, that it all
Love it.
changed.
You
All
see, I'm
changed.
going to use your story now as
Yeah,
well.
use my story now.
So I wanted to
Whatever you
just
do, don't
show
tell
you
him.
something that I invented, by the way, this year as well. So
Ooh.
so funny enough, I was making
Spark.
these cards. They're called Spark Conversations.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so I was making these, and I didn't realize that Stephen Bartlett had made his own
Conversation
conversation card,
cards.
right? Yeah, exactly. So I had no idea I was making these, and it was on a team meeting that someone told me about his ones. But of course, mine are a bit more unique and different because one, they are actual playing cards, so you can see the actual playing
Oh,
cards,
perfect.
and every card has got a question on there as well. So, for example, what does that one say?
That says, well, it's back to front. So do you want to read it out to me? Because
Oh, it's the right way to me. So it says, "Tell me about something that has happened to you that has totally changed your life." So
oh,
these are
wow.
cards that you can take on a date or whatever. But you
Mm.
can use it. In fact, you can use it with your podcast guests, whatever. I'll send you a deck of these if you want.
Yeah,
They're just,
definitely. Please do.
yeah, they're just a great way to just initiate conversation. Take them on a first date. If you don't know what to say, you're a bit shy, feeling a bit nervous, take these with you and just have
Or
some
even if your date is a bit stale and they're not
yeah.
into conversation, this will be great.
Play some card games, play Snap, doesn't matter, do whatever, just better than just sitting there going feeling awkward. Do something.
Yeah, 100%. You might as well enjoy it as much as you can enjoy.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love it. Amit, thank you so, so much. Honestly, this conversation has been incredible. I've enjoyed every second of it. And when I invited Amit on, I was just like, I knew how the conversation was going to go. And this has honestly lived up to everything. It's been such a fun conversation. Thank you for being so open and honest. It's been absolutely incredible. And if our amazing listeners, anyone listening or watching this conversation, if they want to get hold of you, what's the best way for them to kind of reach out to you?
Well, of course. Well, firstly, thank you to you as well. Really, very much appreciate you having me on. It's an absolute pleasure, and I loved it. And I hope we do a part two.
Part
That's a
two.
point. Yeah, do a part two. Of course, for all the single stuff, connectasian.net is the website. For all of my stuff, unlimitedchoice.org, and I'm all over social media. Everyone's probably seen my videos that I do. I do mostly talking head videos, giving dating advice, tips, relationship advice, all that kind of stuff. It's so. I want to say, if you look at my TikTok, it's just years of content now, literally, of all the different stuff. Have you ever looked back at your old content, by the way? Like, have you and
Yeah.
seen the evolution and stuff? And I
Yeah.
see my videos now, and I'm like, they're a lot better than they were back then.
Oh my God. My first office was in the box room of my house. So I'm just like, oh my God, I used to have this little tiny shoe cupboard. I used to feel like, do you remember in the, when we were younger, and who was it? Andy
BBC.
Peters.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's what I felt like my office was, this little cupboard. So yeah, the evolution is
Oh,
amazing.
bless. I love it. I love it. So yeah. So there you go. That's where you can reach me and you can see all my advice. And I've obviously got my podcast as well, the Feel Inspired podcast. So you can catch that, where I'm currently I do have guests, but I also do this thing where I live coach my guests, my clients on the podcast. And every episode is a coaching session. So I've got two lovely clients that I'm working with. One is Devi, one is Britti. And I'm finding a guy that I can also do this with as well. But just been coaching them on their journey as well.
Amazing. That sounds incredible. And I actually just went on your link tree as well. So on your Instagram, the link in your bio, there's so much stuff in there. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have a quick look at this afterwards as well. So there's loads of stuff there as well. So thank you so, so much, Amit. Honestly, it's been absolutely incredible. And yes, look out for a part two. You just never know.
Can't wait. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Amit. And thank you to everybody who listened and watched this conversation. Please do leave some of your comments down below and keep checking back in case Amit remembers the worst dating story and he adds it into the comments as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Amit.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.